And we are live for our next Facebook author interview. It's been a couple of weeks since we did one, actually, but we're here, yes, and we're doing it. Yay! I'll just give people a little moment to come and join us on YouTube and Facebook while we're hanging out. How are you, Robbie? How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm feeling very official today. I'm taking this call in the study, which is the awkward place where my parents have hung up things like my degrees and my graduation, which I'm hiding by having there we go. Nearly. That's more like it. So I feel like I'm on some sort of BBC conference call or something, about to give you live diplomatic updates. But actually it's XMen, so that's much more fun.
And also you haven't just come in from a run like you did last time.
Oh no, don't remind me. I forgot about that. That was incredible. I was literally jogging after a 5K and I had the thought wait, maybe it was meant to be live today. For some reason, because we had done something previously which I thought it wasn't live, and I thought that was the thing that was going to then appear, pre-recorded on that day. And then I was like, wait, no, I actually have to be there to answer questions. I literally jogged in, toweled, changed the t-shirt, and it didn't really help because I was bright red and visibly sweating, and I can only apologize for the lack of professionalism all around there. So yeah, I should have worn a shirt and tie for this instead of my grubby fleece, but I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Among Us t-shirt, so
that's far better than anything anyone else could come up with.
Yeah, there is an imposter among us, and it's all the little Pokemon.
Oh, nice! Yeah, I've just got that.
And then the shadows tell you which one is the.
Oh, that's cool. That is cool. I like that. Yeah, I meant to wear my beloved old Team Fortress 2 t-shirt today because I was I talked about tie and fiction and I can be nerdy, but I forgot it. So yeah.
Oh, sad. Right. Okay. So what are we talking about today? We are talking about First Team, which is one of our Marvel Xavier's Institute novels. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it? Introduce yourself as well, Robbie. For anyone that's new to who you are, shame on you people, but you're about to get learned. Tell us who you are.
If you haven't heard of me, that's totally fine because a lot of people haven't. But so yeah, I'm a sci-fi and fantasy author. I've written for a bunch of different publishers. I'm currently producing plenty for lovely Aconyte, everyone's favorite tie-in publisher at the moment. And yes, I've done one. Oh, that's not true. I've now done just two novels for Aconyte. A fantasy one called The Doom of Fallow Hearth, set in the Descent franchise, and an X-Men novel, which is something I never thought I would get to say. Yeah, it's just crazy. But yes, I've written First Team. It's an X-Men book. It's you can see those cool X's, which I was desperate to have on the front cover. Cool black and yellow uniforms. So yeah, that's my latest offering, and here to talk about it.
Yes. So what's it about? Tell us a little bit about the blurb of the book.
The blurb, yeah. So essentially the setting is Xavier's Institute, which is well, a lot of people, if you're familiar with the X-Men setting, it's like the Xavier Mansion, but it isn't, because this is set after Xavier's Mansion isn't a thing anymore. So it's a school for mutant characters who display their superhero powers, and shenanigans ensue with three of the students. So Victor Borkowski, or Anole, as he's commonly known, Cypher, and Grey Malkin, who are sort of three junior X-Men in training, or X-Men wannabes. And they, well, without too many spoilers, yeah, they get caught up in some intense events. They are essentially attacked by a vicious gang known as the Purifiers, which, again, if you know X-Men, you'll know that they're one of the sort of classic antagonists of the setting. And yeah, I guess you'll have to read the book to find out more.
Yes, yes. So you mentioned our three heroes. Can you elaborate a little bit on who they are and why you decided to put those three together in a team?
Yeah, so Who they are, first off, is probably an easier question to answer than why. They're fairly disparate in that they're their own characters. They don't always team up. They're not like a single group of three that are always together, but they kind of appear in each other's stories in the existing continuum. So Victor, or Vic, is his powers are basically reptilian. He's kind of like a lizard, hence the name Anole. It's a lizard. So he can shapeshift. Well, he can not shapeshift. He's chameleon. He can change his colors. He can climb up walls, all sorts of cool stuff like that. He's a bit of a jokester, a bit of a prankster, a cool kid, someone you'd want to be friends with because he's quite good fun. And then his companions, the other two, Cypher and Grey Malkin, are kind of like foils to that character. They're not polar opposites, but they're quite different. So Grey Malkin is fascinating because he is essentially 300 years old. He was born in the 1700s, which is big for me because I'm a history nerd. So I was like, oh, he's a cool character. And then he was buried alive by his evil, horrible, homophobic father when he came out to him. But his mutant powers allowed him to survive underground for 300 years, and he was eventually found, and he's now living with the after effects of that horrible experience. But he's living, obviously, in a 21st century world as, a 1700s kid. So exploring the 21st century through those eyes is interesting. And then Cypher is a bit of an enigma. I don't know if that's a joke or not. I guess it is technically. Her backstory is very unclear, and I deliberately leave it unclear because it's kind of a cornerstone of who she is. Her origins aren't particularly well known. Her powers, I should have said Grey Malkin's powers. His powers come out in the dark, so whenever he's the less light there is, the faster and the stronger he is, essentially. Which is pretty cool. Yeah, it kind of sounds like a villain, but he's not, which is again what's kind of fun about him. Cypher's abilities: she can go invisible, she can phase through things. So if she doesn't want to be seen or caught or heard, she's basically undetectable. So she's who you want on your side if you want to sneaking in somewhere, which happens a bit in the novel. So yeah, that's the three of them. Why I picked them, to be honest, there was a lot of trying to decide who to pick for this novel. I think there were about 12 pitches in total, because there's so many characters that you could choose from. I mean, the brief for the Xavier's Institute is it's sort of the young XMen students of the Xavier's Institute wanting to tell their stories, but there's dozens and dozens of them, and that's amazing. But it's also a bit intimidating right at the start, where I was like, I don't know who's the story going to be about. So eventually I zeroed in on Vic, and Grey Malkin and Cypher kind of appear a bit in the stories that already exist about him in the comics, and I thought, well, they seem like interesting characters, so that's kind of how they all ended up together. There's also Rockslide, who I should probably mention, who in the background is Vic's best friend, so he's in it a bit as well. He's not quite the same level as the three I've talked about, but yeah, he's another sort of ex-buddy. Yeah. Am I rambling yet?
Yes, I like it. I'm like ticking off my questions. Like, oh, he's answered that one and that one. I'm going to.
Don't worry, I can try and go into more detail.
Okay, so whereabouts in the canon of the Marvel Universe does this sort of story lie? Because people always ask that question of us, like, whereabouts is it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if interviews like this have already been done about the other Marvel stories coming out of Aconyte, they probably have heard this answer already, but it's worth repeating. There's kind of an unofficial alternate universe that we're working in this sort of like Marvel situation. So the classic, like the central Marvel universe is Earth 616. But then we're working at what we're calling unofficially Earth 618. Yep. So it's very similar to the core universe in the setting, but it's a bit different. So there's little things, if you're familiar with the character of Victor, when you read the novel, you'll see that he is essentially the same as his 616 reality. But there's a few little tweaks, and that's good to have that freedom because it lets us kind of create our own stories and not be too sort of hidebound into the pre-existing canon. In terms of where it's set in the actual background, bearing in mind it's similar to 616, I must admit I kind of deliberately fudged that because I didn't want to kind of step on too many toes, either in terms of what's come before, but also in terms of what comes in the future. It's obviously after the classic sort of Xavier's mansion type school is no longer a thing in the setting. It's way before things like Krakoa and the events that kind of spin off that involve a lot of what Vic does. It's kind of before that. He's still quite new at the Institute, so it's kind of like his early school days, but I can't say I've like nailed down, you know, it happens between this month and this month, or between these two specific events. Yeah, I was too cautious about that.
I really want like Aconyte 618 to like to catch on.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
Would be if like someone was writing a Marvel fan site and then they quote like Aconyte 618. I'll be like,
I know, because
I've done it. That's me done.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you go into the like the wikis, it gives you all the different like setting, you know, Earth, all different numbers, including 616. So hopefully at some point we'll get Earth 618 in there.
That'd be amazing. I'm gonna make t-shirts when that happens.
Yes. Yes,
Marvel
we have our own Marvel setting. It's exciting.
Be the best. Okay. So you mentioned about it just being like there's so many different like mutants that you can grab hold of in the Xavier's sort of institute. How do you go about researching which ones you want, and how do you then focus it and narrow it down to those, like what resources are available to you?
Yeah. I'm going to be honest, trade secret here, I did use the wiki quite a lot just for like quick info. Yeah, it was daunting at first because there were so many potentials. I can't really remember the specifics of how I, you know, came across Vic and thought, yes, he's the one that I need to write about. But certainly with the secondary characters, so Graymalkin and Cypher, one of the most important things is how they're similar to Vic, but also very different, especially in terms of sort of like their upbringing. So what I found interesting about Vic early on was that he comes from a very loving and accepting family, which in the X-Men universe is kind of weird because, you know, the X-Men universe is all about like difficult upbringings, difficult trying to get acceptance from society, struggling to come to terms with mutant powers, a lot of tragic backstories going on in there. And Vic just, you know, he just was lucky enough to have not only parents that loved him, but the community accepted him as well when he was growing up. So I thought that was interesting just because it was so different, and it's so different with Graymalkin and Cypher. I mean, Graymalkin's literally the opposite. He was attacked by his own father. Cypher, we don't know, but I think we can assume that there's some bad stuff happened in her past as well. So getting that interplay between those characters was important early on. Beyond that, yeah, I mean, Rockslide was natural because he's friends with Vic in a lot of the background already, so I wanted him in there. Cyclops is the headmaster of the school, essentially, again in the background, so he's tick straight away. So yeah, once I had like the initial in, then it kind of all comes together. But in terms of why Vic, I don't know, I just thought he was cool. He can climb up walls and stuff and turn invisible, so why wouldn't you want to write about him?
Yeah. I like the fact that he has this like happy like backstory to him, and someone that plays like a lot of like D&D and things, like your characters always have these huge tragic stories that, like, pages long, and you're like, oh, this person killed this person who killed this person, and oh, I'm out for revenge. My bunny rabbit was murdered. And no one ever just goes, I don't know, I like had a really good childhood, I just felt like going on an adventure.
Yeah, it's always, you killed my father, prepare to die. Yes. It's yeah, I don't know, I hadn't even really thought about it until I realized that Vic was so different from the others, and that was, yeah, it's not only refreshing, but it helps kind of renew the importance of the ones that do have tragic backstories. It's not just like, oh, another one with a tragic backstory. So I'm glad it worked out that way.
So we mentioned the Purifiers. Can you go into detail a little bit more about those for anyone who's not familiar with that part of the Marvel world and those nasties?
Yeah, so they're a super nasty bunch. They're basically religious fundamentalists, a cult that think that mutants are unnatural and that they should be killed. So yeah, they are kind of like the quintessential, like the most negative aspects of people in that setting are kind of bound up in the Purifiers. I mean, obviously there's loads of different groups that are classic sort of antagonists, things like the Sentinels and stuff, and all sorts of government agencies. But the Purifiers are this sort of widespread populist cult who are just out to get mutants, and the danger they poses kind of rises and falls depending on how powerful their cult leaders are at the time. I actually created my own character, which is always weird when you're writing IP stuff, called Prophet Exodus, who's like the main purifier in this. They do have, obviously in the background, there are standing purifier baddies like Striker, who are kind of like the big bads when it comes to the purifiers. But for this, I kind of made my own one, just so I could kind of have him do stuff. And, well, spoilers to say what happens to him, but yeah. So yeah, they're kind of like a classic cult enemy who are always out to get the mutants, normally the main X-Men, but obviously they also target Xavier's Institute. So, and they kind of fulfilled the role of, like, they were useful in terms of the plot because they're quite numerous. So, like, literally, you know, the classic bad guy henchman, where like 20 guys pile in and then the hero goes kapow, beats them up. You know, I could do a bit of that because they're not just like a small organization. There's loads of them. But yeah, they also still are like, there's the main villain in there who's kind of orchestrating it all. And again, I can't go too far into spoilers.
So what are the themes of the X-Men that you find the most sort of provocative and interesting to write about? So I see the X-Men, sort of the mutants, they represent a lot of sort of minority groups and things.
Yeah, no, I think that's always been the core message of the X-Men franchise. The struggle to find acceptance and sort of the pushback against bigotry. It's timeless, basically. It's sort of a timeless theme, but it's always worth revisiting. I think, especially dealing with like a cast of new X-Men or junior X-Men, it was important that they kind of experience the big bad world in a way. Because if I was dealing with, you know, well-known X-Men, you know, your Wolverines and stuff like that, it would be a bit of a jaded story in that sense, trying to battle against this sort of bigotry that exists against mutants. But for them, for the more junior ones, it's fresh and it's immediate, and that hopefully comes across a bit more in the story. It's one of those themes that, yeah, you can just kind of run with and hope it hits home in the right way. I don't know if it did, but that's because I'm too invested in it. So it's kind of up to the reader to decide. But yeah, the main theme, the central theme of sort of acceptance and pushing back against this underlying hatred is important. And I mean, the Purifiers work into that as well. You know, they're like an archetype bigoted group in this setting. So yeah, got to beat them up.
Yay. So there have been a lot of changes in the X-Men universe in the past sort of few years. We're seeing like more diverse mutants coming into the universe and coming into new storylines. How do you think that has affected your writing when you've been writing some of the older characters that appear in the novel, some of the ones that are a lot less new to the world?
Yeah, I think it was quite interesting to deal with because, I mean, the only sort of really well-established X-Man who we deal with in this is Scott Summers, Cyclops, who's the principal of Xavier's Institute at that time. And I think in a way it was quite easy because I wasn't in his head too much because he wasn't sort of the main character. He was a side character. And we see him through the eyes of the students rather than through his own eyes. So obviously the students are aware of his reputation, but they still see him in the role he is currently, which is sort of the headmaster. He ticks a lot of the sort of classic boxes. He's trying to make sure the school is well run, whilst also protecting the students from all these outside threats that they aren't even aware of. It becomes apparent sort of partway through the novel that he's actually quite invested in what's happening to Vic and the others. He just can't necessarily drop everything and get stuck in now because he's running the school and he's really responsible for everyone in it. So that's a very different sort of story from, you know, if it was just about Cyclops himself and he was out there having adventures. And yeah, I guess it would have been different for me if I had written about more established X-Men previously and was then doing this to kind of like flesh out more minor characters. I mean, it's my first one, so I'm coming from those minor characters, and with them, I'm kind of looking up at these more established X-Men rather than in the head of those established X-Men looking down, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think it was a useful way of doing it that didn't put too much pressure on me to get these well-known X-Men right, you know, exactly what they were thinking and tying in correctly with the lore and stuff. It's not about them; it's about the kids.
Yeah.
I'm definitely rambling now.
No, so why do you think the X-Men sort of always feels quite new and interesting? Like it's always sort of growing. What components of the stories do you think makes that happen?
Yeah, I think it's all about the characters, really. I think the fact that the characters in the setting are, you know, there's new ones being added, and the ones that we've seen continue to grow and continue to learn and expand, and their storyline continues to develop. It really is sort of one big ongoing story. It's just so huge that it's easier to think of it as, you know, disparate things, but it all flows together. I think it works really well together. Hopefully, this book and all the other ones that Aconyte are producing is part of that process where it keeps developing characters that were less well known and introducing new characters sometimes, and that sort of constant refreshing and revitalization, I think, is what keeps the setting so fresh. It's not just like there's a story and the story's finished now and that's the end of it. There's always more stuff occurring because it's more than just a story. It's a setting, so things happen all over the place and continue to happen, and hopefully that is the case for a long time to come.
Yes, I suppose like there's always new mutants being born, as it were. So
Yeah.
they have to go to the school at some point.
Always fresh stories to be told, basically.
Yes. Who was your favorite character to write in the book?
Probably Graymalkin, because like I said, I'm a history nerd. I've in case you couldn't tell, got a bunch of degrees, mostly in American history, American colonial history. So he's literally from like the epicenter of the stuff that I've studied. So having a character that's suddenly like, oh, and now you're in 2000, whatever it is, that was quite fun to do. He's also like quite deadpan funny. Like Vic tries to be sort of like actually funny, whereas Graymalkin is funny without. Well, he's not trying. Like he's trying to be funny, but he just does it in such a way that it's more like dead humor, which can be more fun to write, I think.
Yes.
But all three of them are quite fun because I bounce between their point of view. So, sometimes if I'd been with one for quite a while, it started to get a bit wearing. But then you'd go to a different one, and because they think and act and speak totally differently, it's kind of refreshes the writing. So it's fun to switch around like that. And a little bit with the villain as well, because you get into the villain point of view. And it's always a challenge to try and take someone who's absolutely horrible and think the way they think, which is very freaky. Death of the author, as they say. So it was fun all around. But I'd say in terms of a single one to write, probably Graymalkin.
So a lot of our like Aconyte authors, and it's one of the things I love about all of you, is that like you talk to each other about what you're doing and what you're working on, and sort of discuss the stories that are going on. Have you got any like plans to be working with any of the Xavier authors for cameos and things in each other's stories?
Well, if there's official plans, I couldn't say. But in terms of just like dropping things in, there's a bit. So I included Carrie Harris's, one of her characters, Triage, in sort of the school, because they're all in the school, so it'd be weird if there wasn't some mention. So there was that. I know that there's more stuff coming, which again I better not talk about. But in terms of like unofficial inclusion, I think the whole idea with this range is to kind of create a few different stories and a bunch of different characters, but then kind of like begin to tie them up and tie them all together into the setting, so they're all kind of bouncing off each other's, and their adventures they're not in isolation. It's all going on together. So I think it is good fun when authors kind of pick characters out from other books and include them a bit. It's certainly something I would do in the future as well. So yeah, I guess we'll just have to watch this space.
Yay! It's my favourite bit when I hear that authors are working together. Or I get a little email saying, "Hey, Anjuli, can I just read so and so's book because I'd really like to include this character?" And I'm like, "Yay!" Of course you can.
Yeah, no, it is. It is like definitely a thing. Carrie Harris was a massive help to me, especially in the past few months where I've kind of been like trying to get the word out about the book because hers has come before mine. Her Liberty and Justice for All, the previous Xavier's Institute novel. So she kind of went through it all, and I was like, so like, how do you get interest online and stuff like that? And she's been put me in touch with loads of people, and yeah, she's super helpful. So yeah, thanks,
she
Carrie.
put me in touch with a whole load of people as well.
Oh, well, there you go.
People, it's very exciting.
She's really
which
nice.
helped me a lot as well. But yeah. If you want to listen to any of the interviews or any reviews and things, they are up on our website under the book. So if you go to the book page for First Team, we have all the interview links and review links and things so you can go and read all the really cool stuff that people have said about the book, and you can listen to Robbie talk to other people who know more about Marvel than me. Who is your favourite Marvel character? So if Marvel said you can write about anyone, you don't care, who are you going to pick?
That's too much pressure. I mean, genuinely, it's a tough one. I do have a soft spot for Beast because I like werewolves and I like the color blue. So, I mean, he's not a werewolf, but he's a blue beast. Too clever in terms of science and maths for me. It's not my forte. But yeah, he's also a clever guy, so that's nice. So yeah, I like Beast. Storm, Rogue, who's got a book as well, doesn't she? Coming out. Looking forward to that.
Nice one.
I mean, I hate because like the cliche, and if there's any like dedicated X-Men fans, they're gonna be like, oh, but like Wolverine is a badass. Yeah. If someone said write a Wolverine novel, then that would be like mad. Like write an X-Men novel is mad, but I got to like do that. But then if someone did a Wolverine one, I'd be like, I don't know if I could. It'd be too much pressure. But
it does feel like a lot of pressure, like to write another story for Wolverine and have fans not be like, "What have you done? We already know the story."
I mean, that just comes with the territory,
Yes.
But, yeah, no, I mean, it would be very intimidating, but also like a once in a lifetime type thing. So, because he's literally like a cultural icon,
Yeah.
So I won't fanboy too much over Wolverine just now, but but yeah. I mean, it sounds really biased, but genuinely, the X-Men are my favorite sort of superhero group. So yeah.
What type of power would you want if, like, you were a mutant?
Teleportation.
Oh, interesting.
Because, well, I would preface that by saying because then I'd never be late for meetings, but I definitely still would be. You just take more time, don't you? If you go, oh, well, I could be there instantly, so I might as well not do it until a minute 2, and then I'm on Facebook and Twitter. And once you like that, it doesn't matter all the superpowers in the world. I'm still going to be late. But yeah, probably teleportation. I'd have to, work out a lot and go to the gym because I wouldn't get much walking done. But it would just be so useful. Apart from the horrifying idea that it could go wrong and you could end up like stuck in a wall or something.
That would suck.
Yeah, but if there was like a seamless form of teleportation, and if I could avoid all the silly philosophical questions about like, if you are broken down molecule by molecule and reassembled somewhere else, are you still the same person? All that sort of stuff. I'd go for that. What about you?
Either flying or fire, and I'd probably choose fire.
Ooh, nice.
Be like,
pyromancy. Yes.
Yeah, very destructive by nature.
Nice. I'm just preparing to include some fire magic in the undisclosed book that I'm currently writing, which I love because everyone's like, oh, wizards who use like fireballs or lightning bolts, so cliche, but I love it.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, oh, that's why. Yeah, everyone's like, oh, that's why Gandalf's the greatest wizard because his power's like subtle and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, fair enough, it's good. But at the same time, sometimes I want a character who just launches a fireball or just lightning strikes someone because the power.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's what I would like, just to be like propel, and also be like barbecue, boom, done.
Oh yeah,
So,
practical uses, absolutely.
Yeah, that's always been like my just like, oh, come on, fire! No.
You wouldn't use some sort of like birdmancy where you can like control all the birds in your life. I can see one.
I mean, I already control.
I know you are basically already.
Yeah, it's not a superpower. It's just,
yeah, now you already have your superpower. There you go.
Yeah, she's a good girl.
Oh,
she's
amazing.
Currently, she's molting at the moment, doing her spring-summer molt. So she looks a bit bedraggled. And also, she stuck her face in a yogurt pot this morning. So she has yogurt all in her feathers. Clean them.
That's amazing.
Oh, so what is your favorite thing about writing science fiction?
Oof. Probably the opportunity to expand stuff that isn't really too well known, but is known a bit. So I feel like a lot of people, when you think about science fiction, if they imagine themselves doing science fiction, they're like, oh, I could go in and like create something totally new and make this like cool thing that would be mine, but it's in the setting. But I think in reality, when you actually come to it, the idea of taking something that someone else has already created, but which is, there's a lot of potential there, but it's not really been used to its full potential yet, taking that and then making it sort of more mainstream. I guess that's the whole point of science fiction, really. But yeah, I enjoy that. Basically enjoy working with other people's ideas, I suppose. I mean, I think sometimes it's viewed as strange that an author would want to sort of riff off someone else's work rather than come up with something unique. But I think in the wider world, that's really common. I mean, in terms of if you do script writing for like film or theater or TV or stuff, there's often multiple writers that all work together to produce something. And when you're writing a novel, it's actually quite a strange experience if it's just up to you and you're the only person doing it. So yeah, I guess doing IP kind of gets around that in a sense, and it means you get to work closely with lots of nice people and clever editors and all sort of stuff like that.
Yay! We have the best editors.
The team.
Yay! So, are there any challenges to writing science fiction? How do you overcome them?
Yeah, well, the biggest initial challenge is sort of the fear that you're going to mess up with something cool. Going back to the Wolverine situation, if you're lucky enough to get to write a book about Wolverine, then in the back of your mind you begin thinking, wow, this is a character means a lot to a lot of people, and you don't want to. You're never going to make everyone happy all the time, but you don't want to upset everyone at the same time. So there's that fear. I think it's something you just kind of have to put to the back of your mind and just be true to whatever it is you're writing. That sounds very sort of airy, doesn't it? Be true to yourself. But it is true. If you enjoy writing it, then normally people hopefully enjoy reading it. So that's like the basic test for that. So there's that fear. There's also the worry that I mentioned at the start, that you're going to sort of tread on people's toes. People that have written other things in the setting, you might accidentally invalidate, or there's a bit of a clash in some way. But that's not really as much of a problem as people think it is. It's pretty easy to get around, as I did, without sort of directly referencing exactly where First Team, the novel, takes place. I've kind of made it safe so that it isn't crushing anything that might have come before. So yeah, I don't think that's actually as much of an issue as some people might think it is. So basically, there's no negatives.
Yay! Yes. Right. First, I'm going to see if chat has any questions for us. If you've got questions, please put them in the chat now. But while we wait for that, do you have anything else that you would like to plug? It doesn't have to be Aconyte, but tell the people where they can see cool stuff about you.
Cool stuff. I mean, first off, my other Aconyte book, if you want to get that, it's called The Doom of Fowlerhearth. It's fantasy. I think it's good fun. It's been fairly well received.
I love
adventures.
It.
Thank you. Yes.
You in the feels.
Got you read it, yeah. So if you have about £10 or $12 to spare, then please consider buying that. At the moment, I've actually got a bunch of non-fiction out. So yeah, I mentioned I do sell quite a lot of history stuff. So I've got a short book about the American Revolution. which came out from Osprey Publishing, so they're a big military history publisher. It's called British Light Infantry in the American Revolution, which probably sounds incredibly boring to the vast majority of people, but there's probably one historian listening to this and they go, oh, maybe. So you know what you have to do. Apart from that, yeah, everything is either not out yet, has been out for a long time, or is a secret. So the only other thing I can beg for is more followers on Twitter and Facebook. Just my name, Robbie MacNiven, for the handles. And yeah.
Do it. Go follow Robbie. Yay.
Yay.
And Aconyte. Go follow us both.
Yep. Aconyte, really great publisher. So many books now. It's crazy. Like I went on the website like a week ago and looked at books, and it seemed like there were 6 a few months ago. And now there's, I don't even know, there's like, how many? Do you know how many? Like 20?
20-ish, yeah, something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So,
and we still haven't announced any of the full titles yet, so we've only gone up to August. So we still got September to December to announce, which was June.
Yeah, and there's a lot more to come.
Yes, so we're doing cover reveals every week. So check Twitter on a Thursday for cover reveals in our FFG and Marvel ranges. Some pretty books coming out. They're all pretty. But still my favourite. Right, well, chat has been very quiet today. Let's see. Wait, Nick's just jumped in here. How do you feel about the cover for First Team? The cover by Anastasia I can't pronounce it, oh no. Bulgakova? Maybe. Who knows? I'm going to put it in chat.
I don't have it in chat. It's amazing. It's so cool. I mean, yeah, you just like the actual artistry is so nice. I don't know, that sounds like someone that doesn't know much about art would say that the artistry is good. But no, it's like, I mean, yeah, there it is. You look at it for yourself and it's beautiful. The 3 characters are just the way I imagined them. There's some cool stuff in the background, which is relevant to the novel. That is Brooklyn Bridge in New York and a cathedral. I actually weirdly realized that I like churches in a lot of my novels. Like over half the novels I've written, there's a scene in a church or a cathedral. And I don't know why. I think it's just because I think they look cool.
Yeah, they're quite atmospheric, aren't they? You know that there's going to be these like great noises coming from them if there's a fire. Yeah, big gothic things. I probably just watched too much Da Vinci Code or Angels and Demons, whatever. So yeah, the colors, everything, it's crazy. I'm so delighted that she produced the cover for that, because I'd seen her art before and it's really good. Bad to pick favorites, but one of my favorite covers for my novels. It's my 10th novel, I think, 9th. So some competition in there, but yeah, it's amazing. It's beautiful. Yes, I really like the colors. The splash of color at the bottom goes from like those purpley blues into these bright flame colors.
Yeah, we can kind of see that there, isn't it? There.
Yes,
if everyone else can see that. Yeah, the cool faint splatter effect. It's really nice. Really nice.
Yeah, and Anastasia also did the Liberty and Justice for us as well. So yes.
Hopefully she does loads more.
Yes, that would be very, very good. The comment, what's going on? Oh, Nick's just put a little love heart. Nice. Nick, for anyone else watching, Nick does all the commissions for writes the art briefs and finds our artists for us and works with the artists to make these beautiful covers. So, yay for Nick as well.
Well done, Nick. Absolutely nailed it. Yeah. Can I ask, who is it that sort of decides or designs the layout of the books?
So Nick does the inside typesetting and everything for them as well.
Because I mean, I actually only have in physical copy, I only have Doom of Falahouse, but it's so nice. Like, it's a paperback, but it's like the quality is just brilliant. The way the covers kind of like fold.
Have like the little
flap, yeah, and
that doesn't
like
happen on any other ones. It's only on those first like 4, 5, 4, 6.
But yeah, I'm just like the whole design of the book is just really nice. So
yeah, we wanted French flaps on all of them, but sadly our printers decided they couldn't do it anymore.
Ah, well, it happens. I'm glad
Yeah,
my first
they
Aconyte
were
novel got one.
lovely.
Yeah,
But yeah, everything
there we go.
else is a not. Oh look! Oh yeah, I've got it in my hand.
I've not got a copy. It's not fair. I want a copy. Actually,
this is-
only 1,000 words shy of being the longest novel I've written as well, out of the 9.
Ooh.
So it's fairly chunky.
Yes, this got brought round to me the other day. Our samples came in from the US.
Jealous. It's a cruel world.
They look so nice on the bookshelf as well, all together now. Like now that there's like a little collection, it's like,
yeah,
oh, it looks so pretty.
Yeah.
Very nice. Right, well, I think that's us done then. Yay. Thank you very much for coming along and taking some time out of your Friday to come talk to me about First Team. You can buy it anywhere where you buy books in the US from Tuesday. It's out in the UK on the 27th of May due to COVID and such things, shortages of containers and things. We are seeing a slight delay in our UK deliveries coming into here. So it's a little bit later than we would have liked, but it will be here. Yay. But you can get it on ebook globally everywhere. So that's been on sale since the 2nd of March as an ebook. So buy an ebook first, read it, love it, then buy the physical copy as well. Because then when there's shows, you'll find Robbie and he can sign it for you. He can't really sign your ebook. So there we go. Yes, go and buy it. Yay.
Please do.
Yay. Well, thank you very much for coming along. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you for having me.
And we shall see you very soon. Bye.
Bye, folks.